It isn't exactly hyperbole to declare Eldra Patrick DeBarge as one of the greatest singers of all time. Possessing a tenor register, the highest for male singers, El could comfortably switch to falsetto, a vocal register that's a notch higher than his regular range. Perhaps there's no better evidence of this than in 1982's I Like It, where he vocally ascends toward the end of the song with goosebump-arousing effect. El DeBarge often sang the lead for a quintet springing from a musical family of 10 siblings hailing from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Two of the siblings, Bobby and Tommy, had formed part of the funk and R&B band Switch in the 1970s, but DeBarge, down to the name of the group, was strictly a family thing. El joined Bunny, Randy, Mark, and later, James, for a ride that comprised 4 studio albums, signed to the same Gordy imprint under the legendary Motown Records as the act to which their other 2 siblings belonged. Although they had a slow start, DeBarge finally hit their stride with songs like the aforementioned I Like It, which became a number 2 R&B hit and peaked on the Billboard Hot 100 at number 31. Couple that success with a title track going as high as number 5 on the R&B singles chart, and DeBarge's second album, All This Love, found it easy to go gold. More success would follow with 1983's In a Special Way, which also went gold based on the strength of Time Will Reveal, peaking at number 12 on the Hot 100. Motown knew they had something with the ascending group, and more specifically, its focal point. DeBarge was like a light-skinned version of their previous juggernaut, the Jackson 5, and El was like Michael. A singular talent, El not only had a unique tenor to falsetto span, but also produced virtually all of his sibling group's material. But by 1985, it was clear that DeBarge's progression was going to be truncated. Save for El, all of the members of DeBarge had become drug addicted, and Motown had to assist El's overload with a patchwork of producers and previously released material. When Rhythm of the Night finally came out, it felt like a record with a polarized goal. On one hand, it looked like a launching pad for an eventual solo career, with El occupying half of the album's cover while the other 4 members were minimized to fit into the other half. On the other hand, Rhythm of the Night was pop-friendlier and more danceable than any other DeBarge album before it, as though trying to believe that there was a brighter future for a group that was actually on its last legs. Well, Rhythm of the Night, selling close to 1 million copies, turned out to be DeBarge's most successful album. The Calypso-influenced title track peaked at number 3 on the Hot 100, boosted by being included in the soundtrack for the financially successful Motown Productions film The Last Dragon.
Kiss my Converse.
The song even got a video, DeBarge's first and last. Released from their contract, DeBarge would record one more album for a much smaller label before finally calling it quits in 1989. El would remain in the Motown universe, initially finding success in 1986 with his gold-selling eponymous debut album and the number 3 Hot 100 hit, Who's Johnny? But his career quickly petered out by the end of the 80s. Eventually, El succumbed to the same drug addiction from which his siblings suffered, in addition to the legal troubles it often brought. There would be no king of pop level of fortune and fame for this otherwise incredibly talented artist. However, by the 90s, something interesting began to happen. From riff to melody, hip-hop and R&B producers were now sampling El's work with DeBarge. And it wasn't just the singles, it was also deep album cuts. 2 of the most popular DeBarge sampling songs during that time period came from the Notorious B.I.G. and Tupac. Rashad Smith flipped Stay With Me, which was never released as a single, for the remix of One More Chance, which yielded a number 2 pop hit and a platinum plaque for Brooklyn's Finest in 1995. And Daz of the Dog Pound used a portion of another DeBarge album cut, A Dream, for I Ain't Mad At Ya, the final single from Tupac's All Eyes on Me album, with the sample helping with its immense emotional pull since it was released right after Tupac died in September 96. Coincidentally, both Pac and Biggie had met their demise, violently, by June 1997 when El DeBarge bumped into DJ Quik at the House of Blues in Los Angeles. It was the release party for the debut album of Quik's latest protege, Sugar Free, who seemed to have positioned himself as his mentor's only rival in the perm department. Swaths of popular black music, it seemed, had hardened. Even El's area of expertise, known for its specialty in love and melody, wasn't spared. His clean-cut, balladeresque image felt outdated in an era of bump and grind.
Do you want a motherfucker that's hard or it's made cute as hell?
L needed to get his mojo back. And little did he know that he was meeting with a guy who, in his own way, was also weary of the landscape hardening around him, as well as had his own career travails to deal with. But ultimately, legends recognize legends. So, when L introduced himself to Quik, as though he was some up-and-comer or has-been or never was, the latter was taken aback and thereby responded in the only way he knew how. "I know who you is, nigga." According to Quik, Michael Jackson's Thriller album inspired him to become a DJ. He'd actually tried singing and probably would have gone that route if player Ham of Penthouse Players Clique hadn't encouraged him to rap instead. R&B always underlined Quik's work, bubbling under the surface of funk, with nods to occasional full-on detours like the Sexy Leroy and the Chocolate Love Lights numbers. But R&B, indeed the parent of funk music, began to take center stage in Quik's work after his third album, Safe and Sound, in 1995. Having reached the apex of his funk prowess, Quik's output was becoming smoother, as evidenced by the work he and right-hand man G1 did on Let's Get Down, the lead single of Tony's fourth and final album, House of Music, in October 1996. It couldn't have come at a better time. Gangsta rap and G-Funk were burning out. Quik lost his mentor and rhyming inspiration, Eazy-E, in March 1995, and although Safe and Sound, released the month prior, was Quik's Red and Proud album, it seemed that the aura of violence and gang activity was beginning to manifest itself stronger than ever in the three top Pyru's life. First, there was the ongoing battle of MC8. The Compton's most wanted frontman primarily responded with Death Wish 4 off his second solo album, Death Threats, released in April 1996. It was destined to be the last entry in the Death Wish series because people had started to move on shortly after Quik's devastating Dollars and Cents, first released in October 1994. Besides, on March 13, 1995, a month after the song reappeared on the Safe and Sound album, the conflict was morphing into deadly beef. At a Soul Train Awards after-party taking place at a live music venue named El Rey Theater, 28-year-old Kelly Jamison, reputed to be a Rollin' 60s grip, although Quik would dispute his set, more on that later, was beaten to death by Blood affiliates of Death Row Records head honcho Suge Knight, himself a Blood and the party's overseer. DJ Quik, who was managed by and had his latest album executive produced by Suge, did not participate in the grisly act, but he was present, and he even performed, and that led some people, including 8, to point accusatory fingers in his direction, blaming his diss song for inflaming tensions between rival gangs, and, specifically, causing the demise of a roofing professional with 2 kids. Then there was the incident of the leaked Tupac album. Unbeknownst to most people for decades afterward, DJ Quik actually mixed most of the seminal double platter All Eyes on Me, and he had a CD copy of the then unreleased album in his car for further study and tweaking. Somehow, someone got a hold of it and played it at a car show. The thought of hundreds of people listening to brand new music from his most precious signee before it was supposed to come out must have had Suge Knight seething as he summoned the producer to his headquarters at Wilshire Boulevard. Thankfully, with Suge convinced that the leak wasn't on purpose, Quik left unscathed, but not before witnessing a scuffle that was all too common at the world's most dangerous record label. And when he found out who exactly stole the CD mix, he stormed the culprit's house to instigate another melee, in which at one point he had a machine gun pointed at him. Again, thankfully, Quik literally didn't lose his head. Then there were the deaths of Tupac and Biggie, the main opposing parties in an East Coast-West Coast conflict. Quik and Pac had built quite a friendship during the All Eyes on Me recording sessions, and future collaborations were initially a possibility. But Pac would be too consumed by his vitriol for that to ever happen, and he would be gunned down in September 1996, just 3 hours after instigating the beatdown of a Southside Compton Crip by the name of Orlando Baby Lane Anderson. And when Biggie, who Tupac designated as his chief rival, was also murdered 6 months later in the aftermath of an LA-based Soul Train Awards after-party, yeah, another one, Quik was not only present, but, in light of Bloods and Crips being attendees, was also named a suspect. And finally, there was one that really hit home. Reported tensions between Quik's nephew, Thaddeus Davis, and Quik's personal assistant, Darrell Reed, eventually came to a head one night in January 1998 when the former shot the latter dead, while Quik was recording upstairs. Just like that, Quik lost two of the people closest to him. He needed a mental, musical, and environmental detox, and DeBarge was going to help provide it. Their recording sessions at Quik's home studio turned out to be the nucleus of the rapper-producer's fourth album, RHYTHM-AL-ISM. Released on November 10, 1998, the album is subtitled Over 70 Minutes of Commercial-Free Music. Quik is on the cover wearing a silky, blue, Versace shirt and his permed hair slightly blowing in the wind to his right, looking like the leader of some racially integrated rock band from the late 60s. To be fair, he did state that the cover was inspired by The Doors. By then, DJ Quik operated as though he didn't have a label home. Contact with Profile Records, to which he had been signed since 1990, had been sparse and strained, if not non-existent, since he was battling them for back royalties. And it wasn't like Profile had the wherewithal to continue that battle for long. They struck a deal with Arista Records in October 1998, and the process of acquiring their name, catalog, master recordings, and roster of artists began. Quik would now be under the same roof as Whitney Houston, the label's best-selling artist. And it looks like his home of friends and professional affiliates was getting stronger than ever before. After dissing him in his Safe and Sound album, DJ Quik had patched things up with AMG. Plus, he had two protégés under his wing. The aforementioned Sugar Free, born DeJoan Walker and raised primarily in Pomona, eastern Los Angeles County, close to 40 miles away from Compton, had his entire debut, 1997's pimp rhyme-styled street gospel, produced almost entirely by Quik. Around that time, Quik met a promising young rhymer at a local concert by the name of Johnny Burns. The then 18-year-old had been introduced to Quik by Stan Shepard, a music executive who would take Suge Knight's place as Quik's artist manager as well as executive producer for his next album, going by the moniker Mouseburg, a corruption of the firearm brand name to describe his booming delivery. Burns, like Quik, hailed from Compton and physically appeared like a West Coast version of Biggie. Quik quickly took him under his wing, adding him to the largesse of guests that would appear on RHYTHM-AL-ISM, complete with, in addition to AMG, the so-called Class of 91, High C and Second to None. It will be a celebratory occasion like no other. The album opens with an intro that has Quik, after welcoming attendees as though he's in a smoky LA area lounge, rhyming over a rock stomp, as if envisaging how different this album is going to be. And that difference might be hard to initially catch. We Still Party, the first proper song on RHYTHM-AL-ISM, has flourishes of G-Funk with its echoing triangles and whistling synth lines. But with the addition of pounding piano keys, a roaring guitar courtesy of longtime associate Robert Funkster Bacon, and a male and female vocalist chorus, We Still Party bubbles with a smoothness that eschews the rough edges of funk for a groovier, more easygoing sound. Quik was growing into his own man, weaning himself from the P-Funk originators that he worshipped. In a world where the West Coast was waning due to the death of Tupac and the beginning of Death Row Records' decline, as opposed to the resurgence of the East Coast and the ascendancy of the South, Quik was positioning himself as the best candidate to lead the redemption charge for his region.
It's time for somebody to take over the West Coast power with fly style, and I'm the one. Been here for years, check it out.
And as both producer and rapper, you are not going to get anyone to challenge Quik for that role. So Many Ways slides in with the same tempo, albeit with a sturdy boomblish beat, wah-wah guitar, and sprinkly keys. And this time, Quik is joined by longtime compadres Second to None, and a surprise guest. So Many Ways marks the first time Quik brought in someone from the East Coast. Bronx, New York, the birthplace of hip-hop to be precise. Peter Pankey, aka Peter Guns, was still fresh from his big break as one half of a duo with a Billboard Top 10 pop hit, Deja Vu, Uptown Baby. Granted, this is not Peter Guns' first rodeo. For instance, he had shown up on the then LA Lakers Shaquille O'Neal's third album, You Can't Stop the Rain. But this appearance means a lot more because it signifies East Coast-West Coast unity, considering the parties involved and their respective backgrounds and histories.
I'm from the BX where we flex from east to west, so I is coach shipping where we cash them checks.
Second to None sticks around for the next track, Hand in Hand, which was the first song that DJ Quik and DeBarge recorded together and was released as RHYTHM-AL-ISM's second single on September 29th, 1998. But by album number 4, Gangsta D and KK's appearances feel more obligatory than necessary. The trite message, get your money and avoid being a simp, is saved by a pulsating beat with an arrangement that lets the lyrics of DJ Quik and his homeboys breathe optimally. DeBarge is the fresh face here, shining in his serene confidence with a chorus that perfectly sums up the message. And the hook that ends each verse is no slouch either.
First you get the power, then you get the money, then you get the dude, don't be no dummy.
Down, 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 which served as a third and final album single on December 22nd, 1998, is the reintroduction of AMG to the Quik fold, spitting his woman-objectifying verses like he never left. But Sugar Free and Mousberg are more welcome here, since they bring their distinctive styles to make the track more flavorful. Sugar Free, with his vocab-crammed delivery that echoes E40 and decibel spikes that echo mystical, steals the show here.
Ooh, rather slide down and slide a razor blades into a pool of pimpers, but this hoe had the audacity to ask me.
And speaking of the track, it's a bouncy harpsichord production that delightfully surprises toward the end with a 4-bar syncopated section that sounds like the entire crew stepped into a UK club playing jungle or drum and bass. But now it's time for some substance, which is fulfilled with RHYTHM-AL-ISM's lead single and the album's centerpiece, Use a Gangsta.
Sigh. Oh no, it's 99, y'all.
The soundscape is lush, and that's putting it lightly, with flutes, a buzzing lower register synth line, and scratches that sound like someone's turning a radio dial, harnessed to dueling bass and guitars and a snappy drum beat. Sonically and spiritually, Use a Gangsta, which was released on July 14th, 1998, is tied to the celebratory aura of tonight, and you can even detect the interpolation of Clear's intimate connection in virtually every third or fourth bar. It's a luxurious setup for DJ Quik, who transforms the track into a worthy companion of Just Like Compton and Safe and Sound, in addition to Tonight. Being reflective of his life so far, he starts with evaluating his generosity and how much that has cost him, literally and figuratively, before he dives into the verse most people remember, the second one, in which he gives his version of the Kelly Jamerson incident. Granted, his complete self-absorbment of any blame may come off as crass, especially the parts where he tries to implicate the indirect involvement of his arch-rival by claiming that Jamerson was actually part of MC8's set, the West 159th Street Tragnew Park Compton Crips, rather than Rolling 60s as often reported. But at a time when rumors swirled that Quik helped instigate the unfortunate incident, he had to stand up for himself by pointing the finger directly at the deceased's behavior.
Said I killed somebody. Now how that sound? How could I slow somebody to death that's bigger than me and I'm just 155 pounds?
To be fair, Jamerson was no giant either, reportedly standing at 5 feet 4 inches. About Eazy-E's height. In any case, he escapes, pardon the pun, into the third verse, where he's justified in being baffled that any finger would point in his direction when he was just one of about 2,000 people at the Peterson Automotive Museum near which Biggie was fatally shot.
Broke away with the crowd, nervous obviously, and the mother blamed it on me. What the hell?
Amid this chaos is the realization that hip-hop's leaders, embodied by performers like Quik, need to do better. Creating and maintaining an environment of depravity and destruction had snuffed out 2 of the culture's brightest stars within the space of just 6 months, leaving a serious void and glaring vulnerability that threatened to topple the entire rap genre. And it was up to people like Quik to reflect, reroute, and reform for the sake of their overall survival and prosperity. Quik's maturity is sealed at the end of Use a Gangsta, where he plays tributes to Tupac, the Notorious B.I.G, and Jamerson, Rolling 60s, as well as reinforces his earlier reference to his battle with CMW's mouthpiece in the past tense.
And to MCA, when you get your head together, maybe we can do a record. Feel me?
Make no mistake, this ain't a white flag, because the battle, both as a lyrical showcase and as conflict on wax, was over with dollars and cents. It stopped being the former because Quik decisively won, and it stopped being the latter with the Kelly Jamerson episode. Rather, it's a confirmation of Quik as the victor, with highly reflective verses glued together by a chorus that's part homage to the introduction of hip-hop to the world due to its interpolation of the Sugar Hill Gang's Rapper's Delight, and part verification of the long-held stance of its author toward gang life. In a post-Pac and Biggie world where each high-profile hip-hop artist's response was being measured, Quik topped them all with Use a Gangsta, which remains one of his greatest songs and singles. And then RHYTHM-AL-ISM shifts into lightheartedness to the funk degree. The pace is faster, the talk box is back, and the guitars and synthesizers are louder, creating an atmosphere that sounds like someone got Zapp, the Gap Band, and Cameo in a room together. I Used to Know Her is fun storytelling, with Quik and AMG trading verses on a woman they ended up sleeping with, unbeknownst initially to each other. What could have been lyrically derivative is instead an intriguing history lesson, tagging the woman's history from 1991, when Quik and AMG coincidentally released their debut albums, to 1998, when it's understandable why she hadn't progressed much. No Doubt is a cool-off point, with Sugar Free returning and Player Ham, the guy who got DJ Quik to go full-time rapping in the first place, finally stopping by to assist his comrade with his deep-voiced delivery. The funk is still present, smoldering with buzz and warmth. It isn't that much of a dip in the listening experience, and besides, the metaphorically and literally named Speed is a welcome surprise, with its NASCAR-esque clean guitar sound and a DJ Quik that raps faster than usual. Who knew we had it in him?
Is the name I spell 124 beats per minute. I rock well because I'm tight to the second power when I hit the liquor.
It's back to R&B, stronger than ever, with the opulent Whatever You Do. It's a nearly 8-minute lounge-style suite of 70s style live instrumentation, complementary male and female choral vocalization, and DJ Quik going the more thoughtful route of expressing his feelings of lust. Whatever You Do is as much of Quik mastering the art of seduction as he is in stretching out his tracks into musical showcases, enforcing his never-ending love for the flute. Rivaling Whatever You Do's high level of quality is Thinking About You, which is probably the most masterful interpolation of Strawberry Letter 23 in human history, thanks to its dueling undercurrent of synths and overall neo-soul vibe. It's the perfect soundbed for DJ Quik's sense of longing for love that's not necessarily reciprocated, and thus treasures whatever slice of time he and his dream partner managed to share.
Down into your valley, baby, work your tendons. Doing what I do to make you do what you did, to make me come so hard that we almost had a kid.
L's interlude is exactly just that. A warm, soothing atmosphere of sound that allows DeBarge to sing, coo, and ad-lib to his heart's delight. It's so mesmerizing that it goes by faster than its 4 minutes running time, and it's more than an interlude. It's a form of reverence for a musical legend and elder statesman of R&B, granting him a spot all to himself. L remains for the next track, which features jam session-oriented flute and guitars, and is the most guest-studded song in RHYTHM-AL-ISM. Medley for a V, the P medley, begins with the voice of newly christened Snoop Dogg, no longer with the crumbling Death Row Records and now a no-limit soldier, nudging DJ Quik as though he was losing a step or two in the raunchy rap department. Thankfully, Snoop's cousin, fellow Long Beach native and ultimate hip-hop assist man, Nate Dogg, shows up for a hook. High C and Second to None are around for their usual contributions, and Snoop, who called for this song in the first place, starts off the whole affair strong with his opening verse.
Unless that smells like mildew, and we'll do damn near anything to get it, and once I got it, I'm out it, I stay bout it.
As for L, well, he is no longer the innocent, cute-faced boy from Motown.
And I bet you when I'm in it, you can't help but you admit it, you ain't never came as good before. Share is real, got my so high.
Well, L. And if anyone at the time thought L's contribution was delightfully surprising and edgy, they would have been blown away by what comes next. DJ Quik's entire verse is rendered in reverse. Flip the audio, and it's the raunchiest thing he ever recorded. Talk about creative method of censorship. Satisfied with that, Snoop? Bomb Bud 2 is a worthy sequel to the Hood Weed classic, and, in fact, musically, a superior follow-up. It's a demonstration of how much DJ Quik had grown since 1991. The reggae-fused track is more pronounced and even travels to higher registers in its latter half, with Quik singing in a patois delivery that's a lot more convincing than in the original. Plus, at under 3 minutes, Bomb Bud 2 doesn't wear out its welcome. The finale, with pitch-bending choral synths serving as a complementary edge over the bass and electric guitars, is Get Together Again. Topically and spiritually, it's a tribute to this friendship and camaraderie shared between Quik, Second to None, AMG, and High C, who, in chronological order, released their debut albums in 1991. That's why AMG uses the term Class of 91, and even during the time he was on the outs with Quik and KK in particular, that brotherly bond that had developed over the past decade, from the underground red tape days to Billboard chart success, was never going to be truly severed.
Everybody wanna know where we've been, what we doing, do we still like each other? We motherfucking brothers.
And DeBarge closes out his immense contribution to the entire album in the chorus, like an elder sibling happy that his younger ones are together again. But wait. Quik is the name has Quik's Groove, Way Too Funky has Quik's Groove 2, and Safe and Sound has Quik's Groove 3. Where's Quik's Groove 4 in Rhythm-A-L-ISM? Oh well, at least the medley for a V reprise, which doubles as the outro, suffices.
If you bring up like DJ Quik, .com, if you go on the internet and look up anything under me, if it's not up on the Arista, you'll find a little memo, you'll find an entry about a murder that happened at my house, as opposed to all of the positive things that I've done. And it makes me wonder, it makes me feel bad, it makes me not want to subscribe to the internet sometimes. It's like, how come is this what you want people to know about me? So I'm glad that you have shows like BET Live from LA to let me speak my piece. They don't tell you about the things like we just did, like this weekend, me, Tony Lane, Toddy T, King T out in Compton. We just threw one of the biggest bashes, a pool party, and like an after party with nothing but Bloods and Crips, Santana Block, Compton Treetop. Our set, they set all these sets together in peace, in harmony, no arguments, despite how much liquor was consumed. No arguments, no fights, no bad energy. We bringing it together. You see this man, me and this man, come on, man, we used to be arch rivals. Right, for sure. Now I'm gonna make sure he ain't got no boogers in his nose when we on TV. You see what I'm saying? and I'm sure Aid appreciates
that. The deaths of Tupac and Biggie effectively ended the trade of disses between DJ Quik and MC8. Shaken by the violent demise of the aforementioned superstars, and no longer interested in furthering a feud that had passed its sell-by date, both men allowed mutual friends from the death row camp to facilitate a peaceful resolution. Quik and 8 eventually found themselves on BET Tonight with Tavis Smiley on July 21st, 1999. One of the longest rap feuds in history was officially over. This wasn't the only win for DJ Quik. 3 days from that BET appearance, he would receive a key to the city of Compton, his hometown. Quik was the first artist in history to receive that honor, preceding subsequent awardees such as Kendrick Lamar in 2016. And 2 weeks earlier, he'd received another award, a gold plaque from the RIAA for Rhythm-A-L-ISM. A 4th consecutive gold-certified album was definitely a cool achievement. But Rhythm-A-L-ISM, peaking at number 63 on the Billboard 200, much lower than Quik's previous albums, could have sold more copies, especially at a time when hip-hop as a whole was breaking new ground commercially. Blame it on a combination of the notoriously long process of mergers and acquisitions in the music industry to fully pay attention to the album, the cold atmosphere between Quik and Profile, and the underperformance of the singles, none of which charted on the Billboard Rap and Hot 100 charts and only went as high as the lower half of the R&B chart. As far as the mainstream was concerned, DJ Quik was not going to be the one to try and restore the West Coast to its former prominence. By the end of 1999, it was evident that it would be someone else. A resurgent Dr. Dre. And DeBarge could have done with a bit more of that type of resurgence. After Rhythm-A-L-ISM, he still struggled, personally and professionally, with his absolute low being jailed in 2008 for drug and weapons-related charges. But hey, at least he credited Quik with helping him get his voice back. He never went back to his hermit status in the 90s, and he would pave the way for Quik to work with another DeBarge. But that's another story. And over the years, Rhythm-A-L-ISM has aged much better than most rap albums released in the late 90s anyway. Although DJ Quik's first 4 albums are often lionized within his catalog, it's Rhythm-A-L-ISM that has ultimately distinguished itself as the artist's best LP. Recorded and released at a turbulent period in Quik's life and his chosen genre, Rhythm-A-L-ISM is a triumph above the chaos, finding an artist extricating himself from the world of gangsta rap and admirably stepping up as a role model when hip-hop needed moral direction. More specifically, rhythmalism is where DJ Quik weaned himself from the influences of his musical foundations, solidifying himself as more than just a student, producer, MC, and mixing engineer, but as a well-rounded, distinctive musician. Quik's lyricism, while never spectacular, had grown considerably as he added emotional texture and songwriting variants in his songs, including about members of the fairer sex. The presence of guests, from longtime friends to industry associates, feels more heartfelt and passionate than a robotic checklist of heavy hitters. And the music itself, an evenness of quality from beginning to end, avoids the hip-hop production cliches of the late 90s, with a marriage between hip-hop and R&B that ensures that it would hold up eternally as a member of the pantheon of great rap albums. So, by the time of Rhythmalism, it was exceedingly clear that DJ Quik was a singular, multi-dimensional artistic talent in his prime. But with neither a top 40 pop hit, nor any multi-platinum album to call his own at a time when hip-hop was going nowhere but up commercially, at what point would he attain that wider attention worthy of his stature? Maybe Arista, once it completed its takeover of Profile, would have something to say about that.
We about to change the game.
Thanks for watching. For those new here, welcome to Rap Perspective. For the Rappleheads, I greatly appreciate your support. Don't forget to like, comment on, and share this video, and make sure you subscribe to the channel. And I encourage everyone to watch, like, comment on, and share other videos on here. See you in the next video.